Hello, everyone. I'm sorry I have a bad throat, but it's a nice way of an exchange because it will give my author all the time to talk. So that's a very good thing. We begin with a plus. I don't need to introduce Raja Ravi Varma to this beautiful city. I don't need to introduce Ganesh Shivaswamy either because he's a resident of the city, a lawyer who is passionately engaged with Raja Ravi Varma. I've known Ganesh now almost for 15 years. He has been on the trail of Ravi Varma and has actually brought out a 6-volume set. Now, I couldn't carry the 2 volumes which I read, volume 1 and 2 in Delhi. I mean, I wanted to just come straight to from the airport here. And Ganesh did not bring his 2 volumes. So it's a shame because these are absolutely plush, beautiful volumes which are a delight, and they are actually a collector's item, if I may be allowed to say so. I've done a little children's book on Raja Ravi Varma, and I will just share that with you. But it's a very, very pale copy to the intensive and extensive work done by Ganesh Shivaswamy. So my first question to him was, and is, that he's a lawyer. Why did he enter the realm of Raja Ravi Varma, who's in today's world very much talked about? There's a couple in Bombay who have styled a house based on Raja Ravi Varma's essence. And Raja Ravi Varma is a people's person. He's the first one to have given the gods a face. He's the first one who brought in our mythologies into what we call calendar art. So I want to ask Ganesh, why Ravi Varma? As a successful lawyer, why this passion?
Thank you, Dr. Pande. I think there are 2 reasons for it. One is how does an artist, he's not a politician, he's not a statesman, he's not a religious leader, he's an artist. How does an artist reach out as far as a lawyer, whom you can in one sense construe to be the opposite end of the spectrum? Ravi Varma does it. And to me, for an artist to become a household name, I think is a matter of much curiosity. This is one aspect of the answer. The second aspect of the answer is, I think, the outsider's perspective. I'm not a gallerist, I'm not a person who has studied art, but the outsider's perspective is actually more interesting than the player's perspective, just as much as a spectator and a player. The player would have a view, but the spectator has a vision. I'm able to see what's happening in the field. I'm able to see what's happening behind the scenes. I'm even able to see what's happening in the spectator's ring. And I think an addition of all of those makes for a fascinating conversation. And to just look at Ravi Varma or the player in isolation is what scholars have done till now. So I think it's sort of, to look at the larger perspective is much more interesting than to just look at only the player. So the outsider's view, I think, is more important.
I've just put a few questions down because because I think your volumes not being here, I have to, I'm sorry, I'm not promoting my book, but just wanting to show you some images from this book. This is a basic introduction. It's for young adults. It's just talking of the oeuvre of Ravi Varma because he is the father of modernism along with Amrita Shergill. I just wanted to ask you, he's called his volumes, his 6 volumes, an everlasting imprint. What do your volumes cover? How are they different to the works on the artist? There's so many people who've written on Ravi Varma, from Rupika Chawla to Yashodhara Dalmia, to my children's book on Ravi Varma. How is it different? And how did you manage to discover so much new material in a material which was so old and so evident and so visible?
So a number of questions there. One is, how is it different from the other works? I look at Ravi Varma in context. I don't look at him in isolation. So when you look at Ravi Varma, the first aspect of it is what are the factors which influence him to make the image? The models, the theater, the earlier painting traditions, European art, all of that. This is one. Then the second stage is what does Ravi Varma do with the factors? He makes the painting. Stage 3 is how does the painting then get propelled from the painter to the public, largely through the agency of the Ravi Varma press. And once it's in the public domain, how do the public receive it? Do they like it? Do they criticize it? Do they appreciate it? So there are 4 stages to each picture. It therefore means that in my narrative, it is the picture which becomes the protagonist, not really the painter. So the painter is only one of the various elements. If you were to compare my work with Rupika Chawla's work, Rupika's looks more at the artist and looks more at the paintings. So when you're looking at the paintings, her task was very different to my task. So her task was to go and find the paintings. My task, on the other hand, was to try and make sense of the image in the public space. So in fact, Rupika and I had this conversation. I said, you know, the challenge you had was to dig deep and find paintings. My challenge was to try and pin down a cloud. So you are the Varaha avatar, I'm the Vamana avatar. You know, to try and make sense of the larger picture of it. I think this is the way in which mine is substantially different. How did I get the information? You know, it was out there. It was just that people were not searching for it. So archives, there were private collections. The Kilimanur Palace Trust had a huge box of photographs. No one was looking at it. The Hastashilpa Heritage Village has this massive archive of the Ravi Varma press. No one was really looking at it. So I think a very diligent look at it, I think, is what generates 6 volumes. And of course, I have to appreciate the fact that the custodians of them somehow allowed the lawyer better access than other people. I don't know why that is, but I think these people, I know some person actually says, you know, you're a lawyer, you lawyered it. But the fact simply remains is somehow I got better access, unconditional access, encouraging access to the archives, which maybe others didn't get. And that, I think, makes all the difference.
You said they were all there. Now, which are the exact places? Is it only in South India? Because he went to Bombay, he went to all the courts. If you see Manu Pillai's book, he actually went from court to court painting. But you are stressing more on chromolithographs. So first, could you tell the difference to the audience? What do chromolithographs mean? How are they different to painting? And why did you only look at one particular trajectory?
A small correction. It wasn't one particular trajectory. It looks at the entire thing. So the painting is something which is done by the hand of the artist. It could be either through, for Ravi Varma, of course, is either an oil painting or a watercolor. A chromolithograph is a print which is made through a different technique, which is through the process of printing through a printing technique called chromolithography, which largely uses slabs of stone and successive shades for you to get a print. So chromolithograph today is also very rare because most of them have been destroyed. The painting, of course, only served the patron. The chromolithograph served the public. And that's why you have to add both of them for you to understand the entire and larger picture.
So now I'll go straight to your volume 1, which is called, you subtitled it, called it The Shaping of an Artist. It deals with the life of the artist and the factors which shape the image. Can you discuss one or two aspects of it? Maybe Kathakali, models, or photographs. Or I think we have a little time, maybe you could do photographs because it's a modern medium. He's the father of modernism. And one maybe Kathakali because it is from the vernacular, from the traditional.
So first, photography. A lot of people have underplayed the role of photography in the Ravi Varma space. Ravi Varma extensively used photographs for modeling. In fact, in 1892, when he exhibited at the Bombay Art Society exhibition, he came under fire because they said your proportions are just not right. And from 1893 onwards, you see the sudden increase in the use of photography. And Ravi Varma uses photographs of various models. And that's a very interesting narrative as to how these girls actually came and posed for the artist, which in those days would have been very difficult for these girls to come and stand for something which wasn't a portrait. So volume 3, for example, has a photograph of the girl posing for Lakshmi. She's actually holding pencils in her hand and she's standing over there, and the pencils go on to become the lotuses in Ravi Varma's Lakshmi. This is one aspect of photography. And through the photographs, and many of them actually have the names written at the back, we do know who some of these girls are. We don't know many of the names, we do know some of the names, and many of them were very interesting people in their own right. For example, Gauri, it says Gaura ji taken at Benares. Gaura is the name of a very famous Bharatanatyam dancer who went from Travancore to the Baroda court along with the entourage of Chimnabai at the time when she gets married. She goes all the way to Baroda and she reinvents a Bharatanatyam dance tradition. And there she is posing for Ravi Varma's pictures. So these were women in their own right. They were not, entirely simply models for the artist. They were people who were dancers. And there were two of them who were what we would call the Devadasis, the Kalavans. And the Kalavans, one of the Kalavans actually posed for Lakshmi. And these women today, unfortunately, they looked upon with a great deal of condescension, very sadly. But these were women who were women of the arts, and they actually posed for Lakshmi. And for all of y'all who are thinking, for 125 years, you've actually been praying to a Kalavant through the image of Lakshmi. And it's an interesting thing that, there is no separation between the divine. Absolutely. So that is what the narrative begins to evolve. This is one aspect of photography. Volume 2 actually looks at the second aspect of photography. After the Ravi Varma painting was made, and even before the Ravi Varma press came about, Ravi Varma was called upon for photographs of his paintings. So for all of y'all who think it was only the Ravi Varma press which democratized art, which is substantially true, the first way in which democracy of art actually took place was through photography. Photography, of course, had problems because it was black and white, but the images had a whole bunch of color. So this is one aspect which is looked into both in volume 1 and 2. The other is Kathakali. Many people actually don't know that Kathakali was a heavy influence on the Ravi Varma image. Not just lighting, for example, but the dilation of eyes. All of this comes from Kathakali. But the other thing about Kathakali, which is very interesting with Ravi Varma, is the stage convention. In Kathakali, there is a stage convention where the powerful actor or the person with the powerful role is to the right of the person who's in the servient role. So if we were on Kathakali stage, she would be the more powerful person. So she's on the viewer's left. And if we actually interpret Ravi Varma's images using Kathakali stage convention, and I argue that in the later volumes, it actually moves Ravi Varma's pictures away from the frozen moment, which is what academicians have largely referred to Ravi Varma, the tableau vivant, moves it into narrative movement, because you can actually see a story starting to unfold. It's not just a photographic capture of a scene, but you can actually see people moving about. You know what's going to happen if you look at it through Kathakali stage convention. So Kathakali is something which was very, very important to the Ravi Varma composition.
Now, I just want to take you onto a different plane. You see that Ravi Varma valorized women. So would you say that he was one of the modernists who was bringing agency to women?
So let's just explain the first portion of it. Yes, Ravi Varma did valorize women. So if you actually look at the entire work of Raja Ravi Varma, he interestingly captures that moment in time when the man is either being bullied, teased, taunted, or being shown as being a person of lesser morality. So if you look at Sita, if you look at the birth of Shakuntala, Vishwamitra is actually disowning his own child. Or if you look at Vishwamitra Menaka, Menaka is actually is taunting Vishwamitra at that point in time. Mohini and Rukmangada. Rukmangada is being teased by Mohini. So, he captures that particular moment in time where the woman is powerful. Now, to come to the word modern, and this is where I think the outsider-insider view is very interesting. I don't look at modern the way in which you look at modern. I'm just going to explain it. I think modern is a very powerful word. Okay, when I say you, I'm talking about the art fraternity. So modern is a very powerful word. It means so many things. It means novelty. It means departure from tradition. It even goes to the extent where a mother-in-law says it to a daughter-in-law, oh, my daughter-in-law is modern. It actually means she's insensitive. So, there are various ways of looking at modernity. It's a very, very powerful word. And to relegate it to an art history timestamp, your side of the border, you're smiling, your side of the border, I think is just not right. If you look at, and I examine modernity in a different context in the volumes. I look at it with the word of democracy. Okay, so may I continue on to the democracy?
Add to it, because you used photography. Now for me, photography is the most democratic medium. So when you talk of democracy, of art, in Raja Ravi Varma, are you bringing in the democratization of art through photography, or through the lens of, the personal lens of Ravi Varma, or as you are going to now talk of democracy or democratization of the image of the woman?
So when we are looking at democracy with Ravi Varma, we're actually looking at democracy through several means. One is photography, which we've already addressed. The second is through the creation of museums. Ravi Varma himself was instrumental in the creation of the Sri Chitra Art Gallery in Thiruvananthapuram. He heavily contributed to the Madras Museum. He in fact wrote letter after letter by saying Trivandrum must have a museum. Now you must understand that museum is one of the ways in which art actually got democratized. This is process number 2. Process number 3 is his participation in all of the exhibitions. That the Simla Fine Arts Society, the Madras Fine Arts Society, Bombay Fine Arts Society, and even sends it all the way to Chicago. So these are the ways in which. The fourth is chromolithography. So some of it was done directly by the artist. Some of it was done through an agency in the artist's name. So it is through all of these 4 means that Ravi Varma's images finally reach the common man.
And some by the press.
Yes, so that is the chromolithographs through the printing press. So this is how it is through 4 means that Ravi Varma's images actually reach the public. What I do, and this was a statement of purpose, when I embarked on the series, the first question which I asked is, how do you place Ravi Varma's legacy into a larger scene of what is actually happening throughout the world? And if you step back and look at what's happening over those 4 centuries, we start with revolution, we move to industrialization, which moves to democratization, and presently we are through digitization. The period when Ravi Varma is effective is during the period of democracy. Democracy for most people is all about power. But the reality is democracy actually is a much bigger word. So if you look at the previous century, and you look at actually what was happening during that century, the early part of the century is in dramatic and stark contrast to the latter part of the century. So what do I mean by this? In the early part of the century, monarchies were the rule. And towards the end of that particular century, monarchies are almost relegated to the exception, and you have democracies all over the world. Then you have places of religious worship. The early part of the century, places of religious worship were heavily controlled only by the academic society or the elite society. And with the temple entry proclamation in 1930s, places of religious worship also start getting opened up. And today, just a case in point where the lawyer comes in, is even Sabrimala, access of the girl to Sabrimala is being questioned. They also want access to a place like that. So all of these are beginning to give way. The third is, of course, through wealth, through something which we call distributive legislations, the Urban Land Ceiling Act, the Reforms Act, the abolition of privy purses, intense income tax regulations, wealth also was spread. And we see other things, information today, you have the Right to Information Act, you have the Right to Education Act. So the question which is posed is this: if you have power, you have religion, you have education, you have wealth, you have all of these going from few to many, few to many, few to many, how could art not have followed suit? It was bound to happen. The only question is in India, which is the largest democracy, the question is who served that tide, where art also participated in democracy. And the answer is, in that particular trajectory, it's only the Ravi Varma legacy which does it. No other artist's legacy goes down to the auto rickshaw where you have a Lakshmi all the way over there. That intensity of democracy does not happen anywhere else. I would possibly even argue throughout the world it doesn't happen to that extent. And that is what I found very fascinating and worth exploring.
I also believe a lot in, participation from the audience. I think we should put a cap here and let the people ask you certain questions. Because the Ravi Varma legacy is alive even today. You see, all on Lakshmi Puja, every shopkeeper probably has a Ravi Varma calendar with the Lakshmi and the Gajalakshmi showering. And the democratization process, as Ganesh says, is really, perhaps, it reaches down to every micro level, north to south, east to west of India. Thank you for